ऐसे 250, ऐसे 250, ऐसे 250 कंसिडरेशन ऑफ लॉ एंड रेगुलेशंस इन एन ऑडिट ऑफ फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट में हम लोगों को क्या पढ़ना है? कंसिडरेशन ऑफ लॉ एंड रेगुलेशंस इन एन ऑडिट ऑफ फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट. It is the responsibility of the management. It is the responsibility of the management to oversight. It is the responsibility of the management with the oversight of TCW to ensure that entities operations are conducted. Entities operations are conducted in accordance with the provisions of law and regulations. It is the responsibility of the auditor. It is the responsibility of the management to communicate. It is the responsibility of the management with the oversight of TCW to ensure that entities operations are conducted in accordance with the provisions of law and regulations. पहला, the following are the procedures that entity may implement. Following are the procedures that help. The following are the procedures an entity may implement to assist in preventing, detecting of non-compliance with law and regulations. Following are the procedure an entity may implement to assist in preventing and detecting non-compliance with law and regulations. पहला, monitoring the legal requirement and ensuring that operating procedures are designed to meet this requirement. Monitoring the legal requirement and ensuring that operating procedures are designed to meet these requirements. Assist and instituting and operating the appropriate systems of internal control. Developing, publishing and following the code of conduct, ensuring that employees are properly trained and understood the code of conduct, ensuring that employees are properly trained and understood the code of conduct. Monitoring the compliance with code of conduct and acting appropriately to discipline the employee who fails to comply with it. Monitoring the compliance with code of conduct and acting appropriately to discipline the employee who fails to comply with it. Engaging the legal advisor to assist in monitoring the legal requirement. Maintaining a register of significant law and regulations with which entity has to comply with its particular industry and record of the complaint. तो ये सारा पॉइंट है जहाँ पे एंटिटी में इम्प्लीमेंट टू असिस्ट इन प्रिवेंटिंग एंड डिटेक्टिंग द नॉन कंप्लायंस. ठीक है. तो monitoring the legal requirement and ensuring that operating procedure are designed to meet the requirement. Instituting and developing a appropriate systems of internal control. Develop, publish and follow the code of conduct, ensuring that employees are properly trained and understood the code of conduct. Monitoring the compliance with code of conduct and acting appropriately to discipline the employee who fails to comply with it. Engaging a legal advisor to assist in monitoring the legal requirement. Engaging a legal advisor to monitoring in legal requirement. Maintaining a register of significant law and regulations with which entity has to comply with within a particular industry and record of the complaint. उसके बाद बोलता है ऑडिटर रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी इन रिलेशन टू कंप्लायंस विद लॉ एंड रेगुलेशंस. तो दिस ऐसे डिस्टिंग्विशेस द ऑडिटर रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी in relation to compliance with two different categories of law and regulations as follow. This also distinguishes auditor responsibility in relation to compliance with two different categories of law and regulations as follows. Provisions of those law and regulations having direct effect on the having a direct effect on the determination of material amount and disclosure in financial statements such as tax and labor law. Provisions of those law and regulations having direct effect on the material amount and disclosure in financial statement, such as tax and labor law. Other law and regulations that do not have direct effect on the determinations of amount and disclosure in financial statement. For the first category referred above, auditor need to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence about the non-compliance with law and regulations. For the first category, auditor responsibility is to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence about the compliance with the provisions of those law and regulations. For the second category, auditor responsibility is limited to undertake the specified audit procedure which help the auditor to identify non-compliance with those law and regulations that may be material effect on the financial effect. उसके बाद बोलता है रिपोर्टिंग ऑफ नॉन कंप्लायंस। रिपोर्टिंग ऑफ नॉन कंप्लायंस हम 3 को करते हैं। पहला रिपोर्टिंग ऑफ नॉन कंप्लायंस टू TCWG, रिपोर्टिंग ऑफ नॉन कंप्लायंस टू TCWG, रिपोर्टिंग ऑफ नॉन कंप्लायंस इन द ऑडिटर्स रिपोर्ट ऑन द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट, रिपोर्टिंग ऑफ नॉन कंप्लायंस टू रेगुलेटरी इन्फोर्समेंट अथॉरिटीज, रिपोर्टिंग ऑफ नॉन कंप्लायंस टू TCWG, रिपोर्टिंग ऑफ नॉन कंप्लायंस इन ऑडिटर रिपोर्ट on the financial statement, reporting of non-compliance to regulatory enforcement authorities. तो सबसे पहले रिपोर्टिंग ऑफ नॉन कंप्लायंस टू TCWG. Unless all of TCWG are involved in managing the entity, auditor shall communicate with those charged with governance matter involving the non-compliance with law and regulations that have come to the auditor attention. ठीक है। उसके बाद बोलता है in addition, if in the auditor professional judgment non-compliance has a material if in the auditor professional judgment non-compliance is believed to be intentional or material. If in the auditor professional judgment non-compliance is believed to be intentional or material, auditor shall communicate the matter to those charged of governance as soon as practicable. ठीक है। If auditor suspect that management and those charged of governance are involved in non-compliance, auditor shall communicate the matter to next higher level authority at the entity if exists, such as audit committee and advisory committee, supervisory committee. If no higher authority exists, if auditor believes that communications may not be acted upon, auditor shall consider the need to obtain legal advice. ऑडिटर तीन चीज़ करता है TCWG को कम्युनिकेट करने के लिए। पहला बोलता है जब कोई भी TCWG इन्वॉल्व नहीं है मैनेजमेंट में तो TCWG को कम्युनिकेट करेगा। इफ़ ऑडिटर बिलीव करता है कि नॉन कंप्लायंस हैज इंटेंशनल और मटेरियल इफेक्ट है, ऑडिटर तुरंत कम्युनिकेट करेगा TCWG को एज सुन एज प्रैक्टिकेबल। इफ़ ऑडिटर सस्पेक्ट करता है कि मैनेजमेंट और TCWG आर इन्वॉल्व है तो ऑडिटर नेक्स्ट हायर लेवल अथॉरिटी को कम्युनिकेट करेगा। इफ़ नॉट एग्जिस्ट देन एंड ऑडिटर कंसिडर दैट कम्युनिकेशन में नॉट बी एक्टेड अपॉन, मतलब उस पर एक्शन नहीं लिया जाएगा, देन ऑडिटर शैल नीड टू टेक लीगल एडवाइस। रिपोर्टिंग ऑफ नॉन कंप्लायंस इन द ऑडिटर्स रिपोर्ट ऑन फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट. If auditor conclude that non-compliance has a material effect on the financial statement and has not been adequately reflected in the financial statement, auditor shall express a qualified or adverse opinion on the financial statement. If auditor conclude that non-compliance has a material effect on the financial statement and has not been adequately reflected in the financial statement, auditor shall express a qualified or adverse opinion on the financial statement. If auditor is precluded by the management and the TCWG from obtaining sufficient appropriate audit evidence, auditor shall express a qualified or disclaimer of opinion. If auditor is prohibited by management to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence, auditor shall express qualified a disclaimer of opinion. If auditor is unable to determine If auditor is unable to determine whether the non-compliance has occurred because of limitations imposed by the circumstances rather than management or TCWG, auditor shall evaluate the effect on the auditor's opinion. ये बोलता है if auditor is unable to determine whether the non-compliance has occurred because of limitations imposed by the circumstances rather than management or those charged with governance, auditor shall determine their effect on the audit report. The auditor's opinion. Reporting of non-compliance to regulatory or enforcement authority. If auditor has identified a suspected non-compliance with law and regulations, auditor shall determine whether the law and regulations non-compliance with law and regulations. Auditor shall determine whether the auditor it is the responsibility of auditor whether the auditor has a responsibility to report the identified or suspected non-compliance to the party outside the entity. Next topic. Indicator to be considered for verifying the non-compliance with law and regulations. Adverse media comment. Investigation by regulatory authority, government organizations, department, payment for fine additional taxes or penalty, payment for unspecified service or loan to consultant related party, sales commission, agent commission that appears to be accessed in addition to बोलता है sales commission agent fee that appear to be accessed in relation to those ordinarily paid by the entity purchased at prices significantly above or below the market price, unusual payment in cash या purchase in the forms of cashier payable to the bearer, unusual payment toward the legal and retainership fee, unusual payment toward legal and retainership fee, unusual transaction with the company registered in tax haven, payment for goods and service made other than to a country from which goods and service originated, payment for goods and services made other than to a country from which goods and service originated, payment without proper exchange control documentations, existence of information system which fails either by design or by accident to provide adequate audit trial या audit evidence, sufficient audit evidence, unauthorized transaction या inaccurately recorded transaction, adverse media comment.